Welcome to One on One, the Daily Items weekly digital program featuring Susquehanna Valley newsmakers interviewed by Daily Item reporters. Today's guest is President of the Susquehanna Council of Boy Scouts of America, Dennis Dugan, interviewed by editor Dennis Lyons.
It's cloaked in stunning designer attire, a statement of fashion from every angle, unashamed of its opulence, but nothing you didn't already expect from Lincoln.
Unveil innovation with purpose. The all-new 2018 Lincoln MKZ. Or blur the lines between comfort and exhilaration. The 2018 Lincoln MKX. The feeling stays with you.
Sunbury Motors Lincoln, run by the Mertz family since 1915.
Hello, I'm Dennis Lyons, the editor of the Daily Item, and I'm here to welcome you to another edition of One on One, the Daily Item's weekly interview program with area newsmakers. I'm real pleased today to have as our guest Dennis Dugan, who 3 months ago or so, I guess July actually, got named the new Scout Executive of the Susquehanna Council of the Boy Scouts of America. And welcome, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So tell us a little bit about what a Scout Executive does, just for people who are not all that involved with Scouting.
Okay, the Scout Executive serves as the Chief Executive Officer. It is my responsibility as a Scout Executive to work with volunteers, to have a finance committee to support the efforts to put as many youth as possible into the programs of Scouting.
Okay. So now you've been in Scouting for quite some time, I understand.
This is my 20th year as a professional Scouter.
And you came to the Susquehanna Valley from where?
I came down from Albany, New York, where I was serving as the Assistant Scout Executive in Twin Rivers Council.
All right. And you have 4 children, I understand?
I do. My oldest daughter, Elizabeth, we adopted at birth. We were told we couldn't have children. Then we had 3 children in 3 years.
God had another plan.
Exactly. Adriana is 16, Ethan is 15, and Aiden is 14.
Okay. And are any of them involved in Scouting?
Ethan is currently a Life Scout working on his Eagle project and hopes to be an Eagle Scout by next summer.
And you were an Eagle Scout, right?
Correct.
Okay. And what was your Eagle Scout project? Do you remember?
My Eagle Scout project was to map traffic in a little community called Downsville, New York, where they actually put in a traffic light after I did the study.
Well, that's very cool. So Scouting is something I'm real familiar with. I was a Scout in back in the day in Brooklyn, New York, in Troop 127. And it was a very popular program. Our troop probably had something like 50, 60 kids. Now, I know there were some times, probably starting in the 70s or maybe into the 80s, where numbers started to become a problem with Scouting. Has that recovered? Is that still the case? Tell me a little bit about that.
The trend is actually becoming positive. We've begun to actually grow. We did go through a period where membership was down. But what we've done is actually had focus groups and worked with youth to understand what they're passionate about. So now, rather than merit badges being map and compass, for example, they can use their phone to do GPS and learn the same thing. Or they can do video game design, which 10 years ago was not even on our radar.
So what happened with the Scouting numbers over that course of time? What do you think caused that to go down?
A lot of the drop was caused by the fact that schools became a larger part of everybody's community, that they were doing more at a younger age with the students, not necessarily because they wanted to become the competition, but because they felt a need.
Okay. Well, you mentioned using the cell phones. I had the opportunity to go with your predecessor, John Brennan, who I understand is retired now, to Camp Karundanha, and I found I quickly learned that I had no cell service. Before I knew that, I asked John. I said, "So what do you do with these kids? My kids I know are always on their phones." He goes, "Well, they can be on their phones all they want, but at the camp, there's just not a whole lot of cell service." But it's interesting that you're incorporating that technology into the Scouting.
We've found that kids are very much into doing things much more independently than they did in the past. So they have the opportunity of 118 different merit badges to choose from. And as I said, it can be everything from reading and scholarship to doing something to deal with auto mechanics or farming.
Okay. So now just to be clear, the Susquehanna Council involves what counties?
Union, Northumberland, Snyder, Clinton, and Lycoming counties.
Okay, and then there's a separate council that involves Montour?
There's Columbia, Montour right next to us, correct.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the changes that are coming forward in Boy Scouting, and I guess the biggest one is that it's now Scouting BSA, and we're starting to accept Boy Scouts are now becoming a organization that involves both girls and boys.
Correct. In Cub Scouting, which is our program for kindergarten through 5th grade children, we have already begun accepting girls into that program. We started in September. We currently have about 75 different girls who have joined different packs in the council. In February, and we've already begun training the leaders for this, in February, girls in 6th grade through high school can join Scouts BSA and become part of a troop. It will be that they can partner with a currently existing Boy Scout troop, but they will be separate so that the girls have their activities and the boys do theirs.
So is it a different program, or is it? I mean, is it the same handbook? We all
It is.
grew up with the handbook.
It actually is the same handbook. All of the Cub Scout books have been rewritten. The Boy Scout book was rewritten, but none of the requirements were changed. It was just to make it more gender friendly. But they have not changed anything. That the Eagle Scout award that most men are familiar with and the details for, girls going forward will have the same exact requirements.
Okay, so what was the motivation behind doing this?
Well, part of the biggest thing is that we spoke to families, and I mean that nationwide. We've done multiple surveys, and part of the challenge was that parents and children are so much busier than they were 10, 15 years ago. So one of the things that we did was ask the parents that if we allowed girls into the program, and their son and their daughter could be at a meeting at the same time on the same night, how much more likely would they be to become part of the scouting program? And that's the reason why we've developed the family scouting program.
So if you're in a troop, you say they're going to be separate, so there wouldn't be programming that impacts both of them together, or?
There is program that allows them to be together in that it's a surprise to a lot of people when I say that the Boy Scouts of America has actually had girls in their program currently for the last 50 years in exploring and venturing in their high school programs where they can do career-based information or high adventure. The opportunity in Scouts BSA is the first time that girls have to earn merit badges in the same fields that the boys have earned for the last 108 years.
Now, I recall as my four children were going through scouting, a lot of the Cub Scout leaders were women.
They are predominantly still the number one group of leaders in the Cub Scout program. Primarily, and it's really funny, I hate to stereotype, but it really seems as though the moms embrace Cub Scouting, and then when their sons are ready for Boy Scouts, it's your dad's turn. Now, moms are going to have the opportunity to say, you know what, I want to be the Scoutmaster for my child, I'm going to continue.
Are there any women Scoutmasters in the Susquehanna Council?
There are 7 currently, and we are planning a training where we think we will have at least 5 more.
Well, that's excellent. All right, well, we'll talk a little bit more about that and other things in a minute. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching One-on-One. I'm Dennis Lyons. Our guest is Dennis Dugan. We'll be right back.
It's cloaked in stunning designer attire, a statement of fashion from every angle, unashamed of its opulence, but nothing you didn't already expect from Lincoln.
Unveil innovation with purpose. The all-new 2018 Lincoln MKZ. Or blur the lines between comfort and exhilaration. The 2018 Lincoln MKX. The feeling stays with you.
Sunbury Motors Lincoln, run by the Mertz family since 1915.
Hi, we're back on One-on-One. I'm Dennis Lyons, editor of the Daily Item, and I'm here with Dennis Dugan today. He's the brand new Scout executive of the Susquehanna Council right here in the Susquehanna Valley. And Dennis, we were talking about the programming being expanded to include girls now. what are you hearing from boys? You know, I was watching a CBS News report in preparation for this, and they interviewed I think he must have been about an 11-year-old kid, and he was not all that thrilled with the idea of his sister joining the program. So what are you hearing?
Well, it's actually very different depending on their ages. That the kindergarten through third grade boys and girls are equally excited. They're just thrilled with the prospect of learning new things. And then after that, they seem to grow more competitive as they get older. So it's been an interesting dynamic to watch. But for example, we've just finished our council popcorn program, and the girls did a much better job in their units of convincing people to help them go to camp by selling popcorn. So the girls are very competitive.
Okay, so we've got girls in the scouting program, but we probably should stay away from cookies, I would imagine.
Correct.
Okay, talk with me a little bit about that. We obviously have the Heart of Pennsylvania Girl Scout Council here. It's a little bigger, I think, more counties involved. But what has been the reaction from the Girl Scouts program?
Well, we as the Boy Scouts have been very honest and upfront with all the parents that we think that Girl Scouts are a phenomenal program, and we don't want girls to have to choose between the two programs. We believe they can be a part of both, that we have a different path for each program, that the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts are trying to teach young ladies different things. So we think we can coexist.
Is there any chance that maybe boys joining the Girl Scouts?
I have not heard that from their side.
Okay. Hey, let's get beyond the girls joining. That's obviously the biggest news of the moment. But you have some programs that I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of. You mentioned them briefly in passing, the Venture program and the Explorers. Tell me, first of all, what the Venture program is.
Okay, the Venturing program is a co-ed program for boys and girls 14 to 21 that is designed for them to enhance their skills in high adventure. That if, for example, they decided as a group that they wanted to go bicycling in the Adirondacks. Well, what would the requirements be? What kind of bike would they need? What kind of equipment would they have to have? So they learn how to do that. They learn how to budget so that they can raise money to have a trip like that, and then they go on the great adventures. So we've had venture crews that have gone whitewater rafting. We've had venture crews that have gone to Philmont and Seabase. We've had venture crews that have gone to other states to go caving and spelunking. You can no longer do that in Pennsylvania, but...
And are these venture programs affiliated with troops?
They are their own units, but yes, you can be a Boy Scout and be a venturer at the same time. There's no additional fee for that.
Now, I remember the Explorers, actually, when I was in scouting, which was a million years ago. There were Explorers. I think they wore dark green uniforms instead of the kind of color
Correct.
you're wearing.
They do still wear the dark green uniform as officially as the Explorer uniform. It's been relaxed a little bit. They wear much more casual clothes now, pretty much, in exploring. But what that is career exploration. Usually, the most popular explorer groups are fire, police, and emergency services. But we've seen a real growth in Susquehanna Council as we're introducing skilled trades where boys and girls can become familiar with plumbing and welding and things that they can do with their hands if they're not going to go on to college. We've identified that there's a need, and the companies in the Susquehanna Council have been great about becoming partners with us.
You mentioned this a little bit briefly before as well, but how do you compete? I mean, there's just so many activities. There's sports up the wazoo, we have high school marching band, what have you, and you may be in a situation where not showing up for your sports practice or your band would be detrimental to you being able to participate there. How does the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, scouting in general compete with that?
Well, one of the benefits about being a scout is that it's a year-round program, so that if you miss a few meetings because you have other things going on in your life, it doesn't start or stop, that the whole group doesn't move on without you, that because everything in the Merit Badge program is individual based, you have the opportunity to work at a pace that works for you. And because the other benefit to scouting is that you start at 11 years old as a Boy Scout, you have until you're 18 to earn your Eagle Award. So some boys are really motivated as young as 14 getting their Eagle Scout Award. Others, they take 2 years off for the fumes, perfumes, and car fumes, but then they come back and they realize they have a little bit to finish, and they do their Eagle Project, and they eagle out very close to their 18th birthday. So it works for different people and different personalities.
Do you find that most kids involved in scouting had parents who were involved in scouting?
That is absolutely the case, in that even young men who have joined the Cub Scout program, their moms will say, well, I was never a scout, but my brothers were, or my father was, and we want our son to be a part of scouting.
One of the things I remember as a kid, and when you're a kid, one of the last things you want to do is be different, and you also sort of want to be cool. I don't know if I ever achieved any level of coolness, but is it cool to be a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout or a Scout in general?
It's a different version than you and I remember, in that Cub Scouts are very happy to wear their uniforms to school, to be seen in their community wearing their uniforms. Even our Boy Scouts and Explorers will participate in parades and do community service in their uniform. They're not embarrassed by the uniform, but it's just that most people now don't dress that way, that everybody wants to be unique and look different. Scouting, the uniform in their meetings is to make everybody look the same, so that you can't tell if it's a doctor's son or someone who's on public assistance. They just look like scouts, and they work together.
Following up on that, talk to me a little bit about what kind of kids are scouts. Is it a diverse group?
It is an absolutely incredibly diverse group. We serve youth that are in after-school programs. We serve youth that may be looking for a diversion from some bad mistakes they've made in their past. We are welcome to everybody, and there is no barrier to their joining scouting. If they need financial aid, we will assist them. If they need help getting uniforms or books, we have people and volunteers that are more than happy to help make that happen for them.
And what kind of organizations sponsor troops in the Susquehanna Council?
In the Susquehanna Council, churches are our number one charter partner. We also have units that are chartered by fire departments, police departments, and even a couple of the schools have their own.
Okay, and when the program became more inclusive, including obviously gay scouts, did that cause issues in the Susquehanna Council?
Not in the Susquehanna Council. One of the great things about coming to this council in the last 4 months is that everybody cares about their community, that there is a sense of family in each of the towns that I've gone into, that I was actually shocked in that I know the names of the 4 families who live on either side of where I live. I can't say that in the hometown I come from, that I know who all my neighbors are. So these communities have been very good about scouts being scouts. It hasn't really been a hot button issue for us.
Okay, well, we are going to leave it there. Dennis Dugan, good luck to you. Welcome to the Susquehanna Valley.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. You've been watching One on One, and we hope you'll be back next Thursday for another edition.
Thank you for watching One on One. We hope you'll join us next Thursday for another edition.